Expectation is an incredible thing. It can keep us going in the midst of real challenges, and when it's tough, sometimes we just need that hope that's held out before us. And one of the things that we find when we read the prophets is that they had that ability very often just to hold out that hope, that expectation, sometimes in the midst of really difficult circumstances. And we find in Isaiah the fact that he's prophesying of the coming Messiah. And he talks about this openly in chapter 11 of his prophecy. He's talking about the root of Jesse, and that's such a picture, isn't it, of the one who's going to come from David's line to bring transformation. And he talks about in that day, the root of Jesse. And then in the very next chapter, he's saying the same thing again. In that day, in that day. And I just love it because he says this, in that day you will say, give praise to the Lord, proclaim his name, make known among the nations what he has done. Sing to the Lord, for he has done glorious things. And that's just so extraordinary that in that day when we see the root of Jesse raised up, in that day we should be full of thanksgiving. Now, of course, this is the prophet speaking of a day that's to come. We're living in that day. So how much more should we be giving thanks? How much more should we be offering that praise and thanksgiving for all the great things that God has done? And I love the extensiveness of this because it says, make known among the nations what he has done. And one of the things that, the early church had to contend with was that they were living at a time when it was quite hard to believe that God was going to move in all the nations. They could see that amongst his chosen people, yes, God wanted to move, but actually to the whole wide world, every single nation, well, we are so grateful that the church took the Great Commission seriously and proclaimed his word to the nations, because we're here today with that knowledge that among the nations, God has been glorified. And we want that to continue. There are places now that really need to hear the gospel afresh. We need to make sure that in all the earth, the good news of the Son of David raised up as the root of Jesse to bring our salvation is made known. So let's have that gratitude in our hearts. Let's keep that in that day sort of sense of expectation. But also, for me, in that day, one day, the Lord is going to return. But he'll return when the word of God has gone throughout the whole earth and everyone's had an opportunity to hear and know. What a day that's going to be. Let's get ready to give thanks for that.